ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ all of that, you heard? ذَلِكَ is actually an expression in Arabic. It doesn't just mean that. It's basically, did you get all that? Take that seriously now. وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ حُرُمَاتِ اللَّهِ and whoever would magnify, make a big deal out of the things that Allah has made haram. Yu'azzim, I'm translating to make a big deal out of something. Whoever will make a big deal out of things that Allah has made haram. Now what are the big deals out of things Allah has made haram at Hajj? People. You can't be mean to people. You can't yell at people. You can't lose your temper. You can't hurt anyone. You can't curse anyone. You can't have intimacy. You can't sacrifice animals before the time comes. Your behavior, certain behaviors are haram. Certain places you can't go there anymore, not until the time comes. These are all hurumat. You have to show the proper respect. Hurumat also means things that have to be respected with the utmost respect. That's why ihtiram comes from hurma also. لِكُلِّ قَدِيمٍ hurma. That doesn't mean every old person is haram. It means every old person has respect. Every older person has respect. So whoever makes a big deal out of the things that should be respected, and especially talking to the young folks here, inshallah, when you get a chance to go to Hajj, don't leave your whatever in America. Leave it here. You have to make a big deal out of the Kaaba. SubhanAllah, everybody around you is making the Kaaba and you're like, what's the big deal? It's not exactly a monumental architecture, it's just a cube. I don't get it. Leave your whatever over here. Don't bring that there. It's not acceptable to Allah. Whoever makes a big deal out of the sanctified places of Allah and the things that Allah has forbidden, فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ, it's going to be good for him. This person knows what's good for him. عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ, as far as his master is concerned. وَأُحِلَّتْ لَكُمُ الْأَنْعَامُ إِلَّا مَا يُطْلَى عَلَيْكُمْ and the cattle has been made halal on you except what has been read to you already. Meaning even in Meccan or early Medinan period, Muslims were told what animals they cannot eat. And that's going to come in Surah Al-Rum. فَاجْتَنِبُوا الرِّجْسَ then stay away from filth. مِنَ الْأَوْثَانِ from statues. Statues were a big part of Meccan tradition for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. And awthan is different from asnam. Sanam, a manufactured, carved idol. Wathan is actually statues that stay in their place for a long time, ancient statues. And then there are also statues that aren't actually statues, they're just a rock or a tree or some water from a river that's considered sacred, and they don't even want to carve it because it's so holy. That's a wathan. So stay away from that filthy stuff. وَاجْتَنِبُوا قَوْلَ الزُّورِ and stay away from the word of falsehood. Zur, like batil, sidestepping the truth or speaking out against the truth. This is mentioned because when people used to go to Hajj, they used to revive and review the mythologies of shirk. They used to talk about those stories, what makes these idols great. And the Muslims, they've become Muslim, but they were raised on that stuff. It's almost subconscious, sometimes it just comes out of you. And so Allah goes out of His way to say, listen, when you go make Hajj, make sure you don't say these things. Make sure you don't give any sanctity to those things. I have a friend who was Hindu. And of course in Hinduism you make a big deal out of idols. Right? And you keep them on high shelves, you put flowers around the pictures, etc., etc., etc. When he came to Islam, he had another thing too. He loved action figures, and his kid likes them too. Loves action figures. But what he did after Islam is he made sure the action figures are always on the ground, kicked around, or maybe a leg is broken, or he'd make sure that anything that's a statue is insulted. And he said, I just have to do this. I have to do this. Because he's scarred from the life of shirk. SubhanAllah. So I was like, that's a pretty awesome badman. He goes, you think that's awesome? It's not so awesome anymore. Broke man. So this sensitivity Allah wants to instill into the Sahaba because they have lived a life of shirk. This has been part of their tradition. But the other thing, here that's remarkable to note is Allah is giving them all these instructions about when you go make Hajj, don't make a big deal out of the idols, sacrifice the animal, these major rituals are being talked about. But they're leaving Makkah. And where do you make Hajj? In Makkah. It's as though Allah is saying your return to Makkah is guaranteed, don't you worry about that. Oh yeah, Meccans have kicked you out, they almost killed all of you, don't worry about that, you're coming back. You're absolutely coming back. And then he said, here's the state in which you go to Hajj. حُنَفَاءَ لِلَّهِ solely dedicated to Allah. Focused entirely on Allah. with no other distraction, no other thought. In Arabic we say hanaf and janaf. Janaf is a bias. Hanaf is no bias, no other distraction, focus. You're completely hanif to Allah. غَيْرَ مُشْرِكِينَ بِهِ, while not committing any shirk with Him whatsoever. This also means that Hajj, Muslims are being told, be hunafa to Allah, don't think about anybody else. Don't worry about anything else. Just worry about Allah. Don't worry about updating your Facebook status. Don't worry about having a good picture library. Don't worry about that stuff. Just worry about Allah. It's not like you're visiting, Yosemite National Park. It's not like that. It's not a tourist site. You went there to meet Allah. That's why you went there. You didn't go there to, take fun pictures. People do all kinds of weird, dumb things, like they're texting each other while making tawaf, calling each other, like, hey, can you believe where I am? It's really hot. Can you guess? You have to go around in circles. This is what you came here to do? You're not going to have your cell phone on Judgment Day. The Hajj is supposed to be a rehearsal for Judgment Day. That's what it's supposed to be for. That's what it's there for. An international convention that reminds you and me of Judgment Day. That's what Hajj is. Millions of people wearing clothes that they're going to be buried in, having nothing on their backs but that, coming to Allah saying, we responded to your call. And actually gathering in the field of Arafah, where all humanity will be gathered one day. SubhanAllah. That's what it's supposed to be. How do you lose sight of that? And on Judgment Day, we're going to be cursing out the shaitan, and he's going to be, people are going to be blaming him, and what do? SubhanAllah, we stone. Everything is a mock rehearsal for Judgment Day in Hajj. Everything. You leave everything behind, You can't have the normal pleasures of life. Can't do any of that stuff. حُنَفَاءَ لِلَّهِ غَيْرَ مُشْرِكِينَ بِهِ وَمَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ, and whoever would commit shirk with Allah, فَكَأَنَّمَا خَرَّ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, then it is as though he fell from the sky. Now what parable have we already learned in which somebody was heading up to the sky and could possibly fall? Has that already come? SubhanAllah. You're clinging up a rope, and Allah said, if you've lost hope in Allah, what should you do? Cut it. And what's going to happen once you cut it? You're going to fall. That image is being continued in the next parable. It's awesome how a surah ties together. If you're paying attention to what's going on in the surah, that image was built, someone who lost hope in Allah. But you can't lose hope in Allah. Now you've made it all the way to Hajj. And let me tell you, the people who lose hope in Allah are the people of shirk. That's a form of shirk. It's as though they're falling from the sky. فَتَخْطَفُهُ الطَّيْرُ, then birds are gnawing away at him. So, this picture, like Nodeki, one of the famous Orientalists, argued, this is one of the most illogical examples in the Quran. He made a criticism against the Quran. And he said this example is illogical. Who's ever seen anybody falling from the sky? And he's falling from the sky 9.8 something meters per second squared, acceleration due to gravity, and birds are eating him. فَتَخْطَفُهُ الطَّيْرُ, birds are literally snatching, gnawing at him, and clawing him. What kind of birds are these that are like, the guy is like falling and these birds are like, hey, lunch. And they're all over him and they're having their way with this guy. فَتَخْطَفُهُ الطَّيْرُ. Doesn't make any sense. Something you can't even imagine. And the purpose of giving an example in any language is to make something easy to understand. That's the point of giving an example. You have a hard subject, I don't get it, so the teacher says, okay, let me give you an example. Right? That's the whole point of giving an example. If the example itself doesn't make sense, then it defeats the purpose. So the criticism made by this genius is that this example is illogical, because an example, one of the conditions of a good example is it should be something the audience can relate to, something they can visualize, something they've seen, something from their experience. Nobody's ever seen anybody falling from the sky and birds eating away at him. And then he added, look, it's even more illogical, أَوْ تَهْوِي بِهِ الرِّيحُ فِي مَكَانٍ سَحِيقٍ, or eventually the wind blows him away. تَهْوِي بِهِ, it blows him away, الرِّيحُ, the strong wind. فِي مَكَانٍ سَحِيقٍ, into, now not on, into, that's going to be important a little later, into a place that is sahiq. It's beaten down, crushed to batter, far away, unknown, uncharted land. Uncharted land. People don't go, you know how they have these wildlife preserves, right? And you don't go there? That kind of place. He just falls there. And the argument is, well, if he's falling from the sky, whether he fell in the boonies where nobody knows civilization, like New Jersey, or he fell in Times Square, what's the difference? He's dead either way, right? I mean, whether you fall in the middle of the highway or you fall in the middle of nowhere, you're still dead. What's the point of mentioning it's an unknown place? What's missing from his interpretation, besides a sound intellect, is the fact that the Arabic language carries a lot of connotations. Falling from the sky is a figure of speech used in Arabic way before. It means falling off a mountain. They used to say falling off a mountain, they used to say kharra min as-sama. He fell from the sky. And this expression was used to describe a soldier or his battalion, his group. They're fighting the enemy and they're on top of the mountain. And they're fighting the enemy on the bottom. And of course, who's in the militarily advantageous position? The guy's on top. And despite being in the advantageous position, the guys on the bottom advanced all the way to the top, killed these guys, and then took their corpses and chucked them off the cliff. Now this is interesting because we've already in the same surah seen a guy that's on top of a cliff. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. Imagery is tied together in a surah. So this guy is going to be thrown off the cliff. Okay. Now this would be for the Arab who doesn't believe in the afterlife. He has no concept of akhirah. We're going to be raised again, there's paradise, there's hellfire. The people of shirk, what makes shirk a serious crime? If you tell somebody shirk is a very serious crime, what makes it serious? You might see some consequences in dunya, but where are the real consequences of shirk? In the akhirah. The guy who does shirk has no concept that shirk is a bad problem because he never saw any real difficulties that came in his life as a result of shirk that he did in this world. And he can't relate to the akhirah because he's not from his tradition, they don't know about that, it's a completely alien concept to him. So Allah tells him, okay, you don't know about shirk, and you don't know about the afterlife. If you don't know about the afterlife or you don't believe in the afterlife, what's the final thing for you? Death. Death is the last thing that's going to happen to you. And if death is the last thing that's going to happen to you, as you get closer to death, as you get older and older in age, you realize, man, I'm going to die. Nobody's going to remember me. My existence will end. And you feel the urge to want to be remembered. The only thing of you that will live on is your memory. If you don't believe in the akhirah, if you don't believe in an afterlife, then the only thing that can live on after you is your name. That's all that can live on after you. So you know what people do, like atheists and agnostics and people who don't believe, and especially wealthy ones, at the time they're approaching death, they'll donate millions of dollars to a hospital. So that the hospital department, the pediatrics unit, or the nursery is named after them. And they'll have a statue, really old dead guy, school of medicine. They'll put that. Why? Because they want to live on. Their name has to live on. Now, for the Arab, he doesn't donate to a university to have his name live on, so that the department can be named after him, or a street or a highway can be named after him. What does he do? He goes into battle, and he dies in battle. So people sing poetry about that guy who killed like 80 before he died. Or the guy who, they want their songs to be sung. But the worst thing they can imagine that will be said after them is, you're talking about that guy? The guy who fell from the sky? Because if you say the guy who fell from the sky, what do people remember? That guy was such a bad warrior. People from the bottom of the cliff made it all the way to the top, killed him, and as an act of humiliation, chucked him off the cliff. You talking about that guy? People will laugh at him for centuries. This is his worst nightmare. In other words, if you don't believe in the akhirah, Allah will teach you something. He'll tell you how ugly shirk is. He'll give you an image that you can relate to. And by the way, either he got defeated by his enemy, or he was so scared to fight the enemy that instead of dying by the sword, he chose to what? Just jump off the cliff. So either he's a loser or he's a coward. The last things they want to be said about themselves after they die. Allah says, you want to know about the ugly consequences of shirk? Here's the first thing you know. This is how degrading shirk is. كَأَنَّمَا خَرَّ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. And then when battles are over, then usually soldiers come and collect the body and give it a proper burial. There's actually a time where either side collects their dead and gives them a burial. Usually the winning side takes theirs and leaves, and then the losing side, when they get a chance, they come and they give their dead a burial too. But this guy is such a humiliation to his own people, nobody came and gave him a funeral. At-tayr, birds came, meaning vultures came, and are gnawing at his corpse. So he's already humiliated, but Allah adds another layer of humiliation. These birds that are known for eating filth. But even these birds that are known for eating filth, they have lunch and dinner with him, and they say the rest of it is even too disgusting for us. Even they fly away. Then there's another layer of humiliation. أَوْ تَهْوِي بِهِ الرِّيحِ. Whatever scum and a couple of pieces of bone and flesh are left is blown off by the wind into the woods, into the bush, في مكان سحيق, where nobody will ever find it. Subhanallah. How ugly can you draw an image to help somebody who doesn't understand akhirah, jannah, jahannam, nar, doesn't understand that? Okay, let me tell you from your worldview how ugly shirk is. That's why Allah says whoever did shirk with Allah is like the person who fell from the sky. The birds are gnawing at him, and the winds blows him away to a far off place. Subhanallah. Dhalik, did you get that? That says dhalik. Exclamation mark. You heard that? Did that get through? وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ. And whoever would magnify the sha'air of Allah. Sha'air is a hard word to translate. Sha'air comes from shu'ur and mash'ar. Mash'ar means feeling. Shu'ur means recognition, awareness. There are certain things that raise an awareness of Allah. You see the Kaaba, you become more aware of Allah. You see Maqam Ibrahim, it makes you more aware of Allah. You smell Zamzam, you taste Zamzam, it makes you more aware of Allah. All those memories, that entire legacy is jogged in your mind. You walk by the battlefield of Badr and your memory is jogged. It's a place that your iman is increased. You pray in al-Masjid al-Nabawi and your mind starts imagining what it must have been like when the Rasul was the Imam and the Sahaba were praying behind him. These are the sha'air of Allah. The places, the things that bring about an awareness of Allah, a recognition of Allah. They make you feel closer to Allah. فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. So whoever makes a big deal out of those places, then that making a big deal out of those places and going and visiting them and feeling that closeness to Allah and reminiscing about the past, this is a sign of the hearts having taqwa in them, of having conscience in them. May Allah give us all that taqwa. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَنَافِعْ إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. And you may have any benefits from the animals you're supposed to sacrifice until a given time. Meaning you can drink their milk, you can take them for a ride, etc. No problem. You can't just say this is the animal of sacrifice, therefore I can't ride it, therefore I can't drink its milk. That's fine. ثُمَّ مَحِلُّهَا إِلَى الْبَيْتِ الْعَتِيقِ. Then its final place is going to be to the old house, meaning the valley of Mina by Marwa, where the animal is supposed to be sacrificed. وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ مَنْسَكَ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكَ. And for every single nation, we set up a place and a way and a method of sacrifice. Meaning the tradition of sacrifice we have is not the same tradition as the Israelites. It's not the same tradition as maybe the nation of Salih, etc. Every nation was given their own form of sacrifice. This is mentioned because some of the Christians and Jews started saying, we never heard of this form of sacrifice. What are you talking about? This is something the mushrikun of Arabia do. Because our sacrifice actually is closest to the Arab tradition. The mushrik Arab tradition, Meccan tradition. It's not similar to the Jewish tradition. And that's actually an amazing thing. You would think that's a problem, isn't it? We're supposed to be closer to the Jews and Christians, not the Meccans. But actually this is one of the great proofs that the son to be sacrificed was Ismail. Ismail settled in Mecca. Ismail built the house. And Ismail was the son to be sacrificed. And as a result, that tradition of sacrifice was passed down from Ismail to his offspring, which eventually fell into shirk, which became the shirk tradition of sacrificing animals, which is then brought back to its pure form by Islam. So how were the Arabs sacrificing in the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam for thousands of years, even without believing in Allah? Where did that tradition even come for them? Because it originated with Ibrahim alayhi salam. لِيَذْكُرُوا اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَى مَا رَزَقَهُم مِّن بَهِيمَةِ الْأَنْعَامِ. So that they may mention the name of Allah, pronounce the name of Allah over whatever Allah provided them, whatever He provided them from four-legged cattle, sheep, cows, camel, etc. فَإِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ فَلَهُ أَسْلِمُوا. Then your God, your one to worthy of worship, is the one that's worthy of worship for you and obedience for you is one single entity. Then to Him alone you better submit. وَبَشِّرِ الْمُخْبِتِينَ. And congratulate those whose hearts have now become soft. Khabat is actually soft land that becomes soft because of rain. and becomes damp. You step on it and your foot goes in. Allah describes your heart becomes like that. Your personality gets soft. There's a softness in people who go through Hajj. They mellow out. Allah says congratulations to those who got mellow, those who softened up. الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. Those who, when Allah is mentioned, their hearts tremble. وَالصَّابِرِينَ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَهُم. And those who are patient over whatever happens to them. وَالْمُقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ. And especially those special people that establish salat. The special establishers of salat. This is a special case in the Quran. The mudaf has alif lam on it. Muqimi, mudaf, as-salati, mudaf ilayh. What is the alif lam doing there? Oh my goodness. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. This is also called taqseer fil kalam, shortening speech. It's actually alladhina hum muqimu as-salati, and it's shortened to al-muqim as-salati, and the nasab form is used to magnify them, to highlight them. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And from whatever we've provided them, they continue to spend.